Welcome to a Monday edition of List. My birthday, as we said last week. Jordan, it was a good birthday weekend for me. One, Michigan got the number one recruit in the country in Bryce Underwood to commit. Two, Michigan became bowl eligible. And three, the Miami Dolphins won their third consecutive game. As everybody knows, we are now 5-6, like we were predicting us to be a couple weeks ago, maybe even last week. We are one game out of the final playoff spot, and we are riding high going into Green Bay Thanksgiving. And most of all, something that I don't know if people realize, Tua, when he starts, is still undefeated against the Patriots. I would say it was a very successful weekend for me, but also for Dolphin fans everywhere.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's well, you didn't use the magic word, hopium.
Hopium, yeah. More hopium. That is all we care about.
We're riding high on it right now. I think the two games we got through them kind of how we wanted to get through them and wanted to see us get through them, which is beautiful. And now it's Thanksgiving night, bright lights, Lambeau Field, for a chance to really cement ourselves as being back.
Yeah. No, and I think it is worth saying, talking about this game a little bit too. I'll say this, and I asked this to you last week. I think I asked it for you the week before. I don't think Tua has ever played better, at least for us. I know stat-wise it might not show it, but 11-1 and 11 touchdowns, 1 interception, and since he returned, I believe, most accurate quarterback in the NFL. I think he's the most aggressive quarterback in terms of how far he's throwing the ball beyond the sticks. So yeah, Jordan, I got to ask again: is this the best Tua we have seen?
I think so. I think last week we talked about how, if anything, it's the most mature, the most confident, the swaggiest Tua that we've seen. And I think it continued through the New England game, a lot like what we saw against the Raiders, where he's just going out and it looks like there's no concern, there's no questioning. He's just going out there and playing football. And this looks like the Tua that people thought they would see. Now, we're going to say it was against the Raiders and the Patriots. And while there are great things there that we saw, it's going to be interesting to see how he looks against a contending team in the Packers. And I think that that's what everybody in the Dolphins community, everybody in the NFL community wants to see. Tua play big in a game like this with the bright lights. So while I'm excited, while I'm happy to celebrate, it's kind of – I'm still waiting to see if he gets through the Packer game with flying colors. If he looks the way he looked the last 2 weeks against the Packers, I will be hopium number one when we come on next week. I will be number one choo-chooing, but I need to see it.
So the other question I have for you, Jordan, I don't know if you saw this, but PFF released their grades. And with as good as Tua was, how is he only the 13th ranked quarterback in the NFL this week? They gave him, I believe Mr. S sent us yesterday's for us. Tua was graded out at a 68.2, meaning he was just about above average per PFF's ranking. He was behind Anthony Richardson, who had 179 yards, no touchdowns. He was behind Jameis Winston. And I actually saw someone on Twitter X, whatever you want to call it, put today that Tua has the same ranking from PFF as Daniel Jones had in his last 3 games. Tua has the same rankings. PFF was asked about, they have been getting railed all day on social media. Even Elaine Poupert, who we all know I am not a fan of, he has been critical of PFF's grades today. And the only response we got is Tua had a turnover-worthy play in the end zone. But how can you look at what he did yesterday and say he was just a little above average?
I mean, people are showing the stats that Tua's had over the last couple of weeks. But, I mean, 29 for 40, 317 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, 128.9 passer rating. So you're telling me, what'd you say he was 12th?
13th.
13th. So you're telling me there were 12 quarterbacks that played better than a quarterback with a 128.9 rating? That's a system that needs to be relooked at.
Yeah, it is a I don't understand the system, and of course PFF will not talk about their about their formula they use. I know that because before I tried to get an interview for us with a PFF member, and they just said we can't really talk about our system, our formula, unless you are in that. Yes, Mr. S, please give us the list. We can pull that up then once we get it. But yeah, I don't really understand it, but it was bad. As while we're waiting for that list from Mr. S, again, I think the number 2 star for the Dolphins has to be Jalen Waddle, who was our number 1 ranked player. Believe he had something like 7 or 8 catches for 148 yards and a touchdown, if I'm right, or did he have more?
It was 8 catches, 144 yards, and a touchdown.
Okay.
So, and then Jonnu Smith had 9 catches, 87 yards, and a touchdown. Tyreek Hill 5 for 48. Achane 3 for 24 with those 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, Jonnu, I think I saw this. I'm looking for the tweet as well. He is very close to already setting his season record. His best season, this is from Fin Central on X. His best season before joining the Dolphins, 50 receptions, 582 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He is right now at 48 receptions, 535 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So he is going to shatter his career best.
No, it's unbelievable. And the other guy I want to shout out in our tight end room is our 20th ranked player on offense, Julian Hill, with another dud of a day. Looks from the grades like he was okay in pass blocking, or was that run blocking? It was okay in pass blocking. He was abysmal in run blocking. He had the 1 catch, but Julian Hill with another rough day for the Miami Dolphins.
Okay, so I do have the list. So Baker Mayfield was the number 1 ranked quarterback per PFF. He had 294 yards rushing, 0 touchdown, or passing, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Jameis Winston was number 2.
I love Jameis. I just want to say, I love Jameis. He brings so much fire. I'm no negativity towards Jameis whatsoever. I'm such a big Jameis fan.
Yeah, but he had 219 passing yards and an interception. No touchdowns from him. Bryce Young, shout out to Bryce Young, who is playing a lot better since coming back off the bench. I think that was a case of he just needed to calm down a little bit, but he looked really good. But still, he had 263 yards and a passing touchdown. Sam Darnold was number 4, 330 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Anthony Richardson, 172 yards passing, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Russell Wilson, 270 yards, a touchdown. Jaden Daniels, 275, 2 touchdowns. Caleb Williams, 340, 2 touchdowns. Bo Nix, 273, 2 touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes, 269, 3 touchdowns. Geno Smith, 254, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Matthew Stafford, Tua was 14th, not 13th. So Matthew Stafford, 243, 2 touchdowns. And then CJ Stroud, 247, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And then Tua at 14 with 317 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And it is because of 1 turnover-worthy play. But just to give these, the people ranked above him: CJ Stroud, 2 turnover-worthy plays. Matthew Stafford, 1. Geno Smith, 1. Patrick Mahomes, 1. Bo Nix, 1. Caleb Williams, 1. Jaden Daniels, 3. Caleb Williams, 3. Jaden Daniels, 1. Russell Wilson, 1. Anthony Richardson, 2. Sam Darnold, 2. Bryce Young, 1. Jameis Winston, 1. Baker Mayfield, 0. So Tua, despite having more touchdowns than everybody, had, less turnover-worthy plays than all but 1 person in front of him, or the same amount. So you have to wonder how much of that is just PFF. And I hate to say this because it sounds like we're being homers, but it does feel like they do have a bias against Tua when it comes to their rankings.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. And when you look at that, he had no turnovers. He had 1 turnover-worthy play, but he had no turnovers. That when you look at a ranking like that, I think there are times where you can look at the PFF rankings. I think that's one of the times where you understand that's a joke.
Yeah. I just don't understand the whole turnover worthy play too, because like it was the dropped interception. It was almost a touchdown, but I know in the past they gave him a turnover worthy play for a bomb that was in double coverage. It's like, what do you consider a turnover worthy play?
Turnover worthy plays, or I mean, yeah, it was a turnover worthy play, but everybody has them. The point of it is he didn't turn the ball over, and I mean, we had a dominant victory. That I think that's just whatever they're doing there isn't working, and there's nothing bad that you could say really about the Miami Dolphins this week.
Yep. Mr. S has it right. Anthony Richardson being above him despite a blowout loss under 50% completion. This is where I say there's some bias in here. I do think PFF is one of those entities that fall in love with the measurables. So they will look for a reason to give someone a higher ranking than they probably deserve. And it's weird because, like I said, it's one of those things that if you can explain how you use your formula, I can kind of get it. But excuse me, since they refuse to talk about their formula unless you work for PFF, it is tough to really defend that. And again, like Anthony Richardson was not good. Heck, as Mr. S said, and I think you had this highlighted earlier, AJ Cole, the Raiders punter, had a higher passer grading than Tua, according to PFF, and I think that was one throw. So it's kind of hard to get behind some of these rankings.
No, they're terrible. But overall, I think for the Dolphins, you had that 24-point second quarter where it looked like everything just went well for the Dolphins, and a really what seemed like dominant victory until Skylar Thompson got into the game.
Yeah, honestly, I think I kind of predicted this last week where I said I think we're going to give up at least one touchdown. That was just us taking our foot off the gas. I think we gave up two. The 4th and 15 touchdown. I don't know if you saw it. You were at the game, right?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, I don't know what it looked like from your end, but the one replay they showed, it looked like Tyrell Dodson, who had to come in because of an injury to Anthony Walker. It looked like him and Cater Kahu ran into each other, so the tight end got open. But I actually thought Javon Holland, who was our worst rated defender for the day per PFF, I think he was a bit out of position there. And then, like you said, the second touchdown, we take Tua out. We're just going to run out the clock. Skylar Thompson goes to hand the ball off to Jalen Wright and puts it basically in his throat. So, of course, it's a fumble that's returned for a touchdown. And Tua immediately comes into the game to end it. I know people are saying, why don't we go after Daniel Jones? Mike McDaniel kind of put a kibosh on that, which to me basically tells me they understand that it doesn't matter who we bring in at this point. If we don't have Tua, we're not winning. So might as well just have a tank commander as the backup if we get to that point this year. That's just what it says to me.
I'm not sure if I feel comfortable going the rest of the season with Skylar Thompson as the backup quarterback. I just don't. I think that the fact that you're in a game where you can't take Tua out of the game in a comfortable win, that's a problem. That's a problem that needs to get solved. And I think that's something you got to solve pretty immediately. Whether that's Daniel Jones, I don't know. I don't know who it is, but I think you got to find somebody, CJ Beathard, somebody like that.
CJ Beathard was just signed to Jacksonville's active roster.
Who was?
So, yeah, 2 weeks ago. So we don't have a quarterback on the practice squad. It sounds like they may activate Snoop when he's eligible.
Well, then that's what should happen. I think you need a different option right now that you'd at least feel comfortable putting into a football game.
Yep. Yeah, I think we can agree. The offense is just hitting on all cylinders. I, again, come away very impressed with the play calling we are taking, what the defense is giving us. And you're slowly starting to see those windows that were open last year and the year before for Waddle and Tyreek are starting to open again. We are slowly getting more and more big plays, and that's what being patient has to do. That's what getting Devin Achane involved, who I think may be the best receiving running back in the NFL, is doing. That's what getting Jonnu Smith involved in the middle of the field does. So hats off to Mike McDaniel. Hats off for Tua for just being patient. The running game, again, was not good, although I don't think we really committed to it. I think we only had, 11 carries?
We had 24 carries.
Okay.
3 of them being the kneel downs at the end, so really 21. 21
Okay.
for 67 yards, 10 for Achane, 7 for Wright, 2 for Mostert, 1 for Malik Washington, 1 for Jonnu Smith.
Okay. Yeah, I did see that Alec Ingold only had 9 snaps on Sunday, which is a big issue. We need him. I understand we need him healthy, and we didn't need him. But again, I think you're seeing that, again, Austin Jackson and Alec Ingold are very crucial to our running game. I want to see Ingold play more before I say we're in trouble, but that is the one concern that our running game has kind of cratered without those two.
Brett, Zach's a little angry with you in the chat. He's using some language.
Definitely, Brett. It's the fact that the
2 in a
Pats are the
row.
only team to show us single high. Well, okay. Well, he's saying we never get this, but explain the other games, Zach, how we're being patient every other game. So don't be taking lip with me today, mister.
Yeah, I think it's a waste of our time to talk about the Raiders, talk about the Patriots. I think that really the question is, can you go into Green Bay in Lambeau Field in 20-degree weather, raining, a packed stadium, and win when you've shown for years now that it's been very tough for you to win those type of games? So I think we can. I think we have enough talent on the field. It's just a matter of, can we limit the mental mistakes? Can we limit the snap infractions? Can we limit the 3rd and longs that we put ourselves in because of a holding? Can we limit those type of things? The key missed assignments on defense to keep ourselves in a game. And if you tell me that it's a 1-possession game in the 4th quarter and we're getting the ball, I trust Tua to win us that game. But I also think it's very important. Even if we're going to lose to Green Bay, I think the most important thing Thursday night is that Tua has a big game.
Yeah. And the only thing I will say is, yes, we have beaten some bad teams. Without Tua, we also lost to a bad team in Tennessee. Of course, they did just beat Houston. But the one thing I will tell everybody, do not take for granted beating bad teams. Heck, Carolina, who I picked to make the playoffs or be a surprise team, so that's on me. Carolina's been good. They took Kansas City yesterday down to the wire. So, yes, we are only beating bad teams, but don't take that for granted. And also remember, we were a 60-yard field goal away from taking Buffalo to overtime. So, just things to think about. Before we get to Green Bay, I do want to talk about the defense. We lost to, as I think we both went, you go ahead. We lost to multiple bad teams without Tua. Seattle's not a bad team. I guess you can say Indy's a bad team, but they're technically, I think we're now tied maybe ahead of them in the playoffs. Arizona's not a bad team, I don't think. So I wouldn't say we've lost to multiple. I'd say Tennessee's by far the worst loss.
Brett, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you the Broncos' schedule the rest of the season. Okay?
Yeah.
They have 5 games left. I want you to tell me how the Broncos are going to do in each of these games. Coming off 2 straight wins, the Falcons 38-6, and then at the Raiders 29-19. The Raiders always play the Broncos tough. Here are the 5 games. You ready?
Yep.
Monday Night Football, this looks like, at home against the Browns.
I'm going to say a win just because the Browns look like they have some life under them with Jameis.
The Browns look like they have some life, but I think home night game. If this game was in Cleveland, I think I'd pick the Browns. But being that it's in Denver, and Denver is hot right now, I'm going to pick Denver in this game. Okay, so Denver, then they have their bye. So that game's going into their bye, late bye for them. Then they have the Colts at home on Sunday at 4:25.
I think they beat the Colts.
Okay, you think they beat the Colts. Then they go to the Chargers on Thursday Night Football, short week.
They'll lose to the Chargers.
Then the following Sunday at the Bengals.
I think that's a loss.
Then the following Saturday, this looks like, maybe it's a Sunday, home against the Chiefs.
That's tough because I think the Chiefs may be sitting people.
Okay, so going into week 18, you have the Broncos with 7 losses.
Yes.
Going into the Chiefs game. So, can the Dolphins go the rest of the season losing 1 game?
I think so. If you look at some of the – this week is the toughest game. But if you look at the rest of the roster – or, rest of the schedule, not the roster – we're playing a bunch of teams that are not playing well right now.
Yeah. No, totally. And it's the Jets, I think we beat next week. Well, yeah, next week. At Houston is going to be a tough game. But they're not playing
well at all.
They're not playing well. The 49ers at home, the 49ers are banged up. That's going to be an important game for them. At Cleveland at night on a Sunday night.
Could be tough. That'll be tough.
And then at the Jets week 18. And what I will say, the one thing we'll have working for us is if the Jets season is over and the Dolphins need to win week 18 to make the playoffs, MetLife Stadium is going to be packed with Dolphin fans.
Yep. And before we go to the defense, can we just make fun of the Jets? I don't know if you saw the news. They hired the 33rd team, which is a great site to help with their GM search, but it's not the 33rd team. It's the founder, who is Mike Tannenbaum and Rick Spielman. So the Jets are hiring the GM that destroyed their cap, our cap too, but they're hiring the worst GM in their franchise history, arguably, to help them find a new GM. Is there anything more Jets than that?
Nope, there isn't.
Nothing
more Jets.
Yeah, the Jets are the gift that keeps on giving. So hats off to them. But yeah, the rumors keep coming up that they might just bench Aaron Rodgers soon. I think if they lose next week, they're just gonna.
Well, if they're gonna bench Aaron Rodgers, wouldn't the move just be to release him?
You'd think so, but
just get it over with.
The Jets are the Jets. They're gonna do something stupid.
I can't if they put him on the bench, is he gonna show up?
Probably not. But before we get into Packers, we got the defense to talk about. Hats off to Chop Robinson, who again was our highest rated defensive player, and I think this was his best
strung
game.
Together a really good couple weeks.
Yep, he could have had 2.5 sacks. The one was with a forced fumble, but the one was reversed due to an incomplete pass. It was really close. He did have a pass breakup too. I don't know if you saw that. But also, I think on a Sealer sack fumble, he actually dropped into coverage and rerouted the tight end, which I think threw off the timing. So there's the patience, and there are a lot of people out there on social media who've been saying Chop sucks. So,
I don't think Chop sucks.
Yeah, I'm not saying you, but there's other people out there because they were impatient, and he is a rookie. You can see he is. I think he has 24 pressures in the last 4 weeks. He had 10 yesterday. They credit him with. Yes, the Patriots have a bad offensive line, but he's becoming an issue.
He is becoming an issue, and again, I think it's more of
only morons, Mr. S.
I think it's more of we did have other needs. That people wanted us to go after. But Chop is a really good player and is going to be a good player for a while here in Miami. And I think is going to allow us the flexibility to possibly do something about Bradley Chubb in the offseason.
Yeah. I don't think anybody would take that swap right now, Mr. S. I think that's people who – nothing against Graham Barton, but I don't think there's I can't think of a more overrated prospect from the last draft. Not that he was a bad prospect, but – people talking to him like he was a generation.
I think it's a little early to call him the most overrated prospect in the draft, especially when, yes, I understand Chop looks good, but you were all over Graham Barton in the pre-draft process. And I know it's your birthday, but I think that we got to hold the brakes from calling him the biggest bust in the draft as of now.
I didn't say he was the biggest bust. I said he was the most overrated prospect by Dolphins fans because they were talking about him as a generational interior offensive lineman. He was a good interior offensive line prospect, who I think will be good for a while, but people were calling him generational, and I will call a spade and say there was nothing generational about him as a prospect.
I will be honest, and I wanted Jackson Powers Johnson. And even if we were going to take Chop, I think also part of the problem was that people didn't like the selection of Patrick Paul, being that he was more of a redshirt tackle-only prospect when people felt we had a lot of needs on the interior of the offense.
Which we did, and I would have been fine taking him, but I'm going to say this. To you, not you, him, but the two people I'm putting up here, you two, you called him the Creed Humphrey level prospect. He was not that level. So I'm just going to say good, not great prospect.
I was confused with making him a center prospect. I always thought of him more as a guard prospect.
Yeah, he's a fine guard prospect. He was good. If you would have drafted him, I would have been like, yeah, okay. But listening to people talk like he was this generational immediate Pro Bowler, I am going to call you out. I am going to call people out on that. That's just overrating someone who I bet most people didn't watch either. So where we go with that? Johnny coming up with the question on the backup O-line. We have a center-only backup, an attack-only backup. How different is this O-line depth? Well, Jordan, I don't know if you saw, we actually did activate Isaiah Wynn today.
I love it. Roster. I did see it.
And Lester Cotton is gone. The O-line depth is what it is. It's not good, but you can say that about any O-line, almost any O-line in the NFL. There's very few that have good depth. There are very few that have more than 6 offensive linemen, maybe 7 that they trust. So if a guy goes down, if anybody goes down, we're going to be in a rough spot. Unless maybe you can get away with a guard because Isaiah Wynn is probably, if healthy, an upgrade over both Ike and Robert Jones.
Yeah,
but
I think Ike starts at left guard. I'm sorry. I think Wynn starts at left guard.
I think you could even see, I don't know if they'll do it this late just because of the chemistry. I think you could even see them toy with moving Robert Jones to right guard and Ike to left guard, or Wynn to left guard and Ike to the bench. And whatever you think about Ike, he's serviceable as a backup. But even then, I think right now.
My language.
What was that?
I said, you're speaking my language, Ike to the bench.
Yeah. So he's a serviceable backup, but it's not great. If we lose another person, we're not you're basically asking Tua's clock to get sped up even more. And that was just a repeat question. So
he was doing that on purpose.
I know. I didn't read it first. I thought he was doing fine last year, but I think because they want the left guard to pull more, I do think you could see Wynn, who's a lot more athletic than Robert Jones, go there just to give us a little bit more versatility. So just a thought, but I don't know about that. But to finish off with the defense, Zach Sealer's a beast. He might be the best deep tackle in football right now. And Anthony Walker was our third-rated player defensively. Unfortunately, he did get a hamstring injury. They did say today he's probably not going to be out long-term, but he is out this weekend. Luckily, we have Tyrell Dodson, who looked really good in relief and had an amazing interception, even if it was tipped. So
Dodson has made more of a difference so far than David Long made all season.
Yeah, which we kept saying was such a shock for us because David Long played really well last year.
Yeah.
And again, I will say this. Did the defense cost us 2 games? Yeah, at least. Probably Arizona and Buffalo. But a lot of that comes down to David Long being bad and both of our safeties really struggling. I guess you could say all 3 because Marcus May was good. I think his first game he started, but I don't think he's been very good anyway. And we haven't even seen him on defense since Holland's come back.
No.
So.
And Mr. S mentioned it there in the chat, but how about Storm Duck, man? He's really come on. We talked about him last week, but he's really come on as a serviceable player. He was our 5th highest rated player defensively. So he's come in as a really serviceable player, played 48 snaps. And then Quentin Bell with 21 snaps. Another productive week for Quentin Bell.
Yep. Storm Duck targeted 4 times, only gave up 1 catch for 10 yards. That's pretty good. And again, Greg Dulcich, I think is how you say it, got released by Denver today. I don't think we're going to pick him up. I think Jack Stoll is the one guy we picked up. If we do, I wouldn't complain because I think you need to get someone better than Smythe and Hill at this point. But all I know about him is Greg Dulcich is very injury prone.
Yeah, I think if healthy, he's gotten some fantasy buzz. But I wouldn't be mad about any tight end move we make. But I think we're going to stay in house at this point, and kind of ride with the guys we got.
Yeah, that's basically where I'm at. But yeah, like we said, this it's a great game. It's always fun to beat the Patriots, especially after all the years of Tom Brady. And I will never feel sympathy for them. I did see, I don't know if you saw this, but some media in Boston was talking about Jalen Waddle potentially being unhappy and them trying to get him in the offseason. How do they think the Dolphins would, one, give them a highly paid wide receiver? Like, we gave him Devontae Parker, but we just wanted Parker gone. He was washed. Why do they think they would even get Jalen Waddle?
Is Jalen Waddle unhappy?
They were saying stuff about it, and Waddle said he was frustrated at the beginning of the year, but he was more frustrated because we weren't winning.
Well, duh. I mean, he was frustrated because of the play. I don't think it was necessarily. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
He's not going. Even if we're going to make a move with Jalen Waddle, I think that's a situation where, first of all, you talk about, do you move Tyreek Hill instead? And second of all, it's you move him to an NFC team or a team where it's not going to really come back to bite you.
Yep. Smythe is asked, but he blocked well on Achane's first TD. Smythe is good at one thing. He's good at sealing the outside the tackle. He's not a lead blocker. He's not a great pass blocker, but if you just ask him to seal, he's very good. And yes, a healthy Alec Ingold should help the running game as well. He only played 9 snaps, so I'm not worried yet, but I do think it is very concerning that Kendall Lamb, who is doing better in pass protection than that Austin Jackson did, has basically been a sieve in run blocking.
Yeah.
So,
but I think when you talk about Ingold, I think this is a week where Ingold's going to be really important. I think if you're going to win, the formula to win a cold game in Lambeau Field is going to be establishing the run. I think that's going to be a huge part of it, using all 3 of your running backs. And I also think that a big part of that is using that lead blocker in Ingold. And if there's going to be a week for Smythe or Julian Hill to come alive and do something in the run blocking game, this is the week that we could really use it.
Yep. Now on to the Thursday night game. Everybody's going to be nursing a hangover from Thanksgiving Eve, which I'm sure everybody knows is one of the biggest drinking holidays of the year. And then, of course, you have Thanksgiving, so all the food as well. At least one bad football game, because it sounds like it's going to be Cooper Rush versus Tommy DeVito. So
I love that.
That is going to be rough. Is this Jeff Wilson's fresh legs game?
No.
I'll be honest, probably not. I don't think they're gonna activate Jeff Wilson unless someone gets hurt. I think he's done for the year.
I think they go the 3 running back route.
Yeah. We will get into this one a little bit, Johnny. So get into that, but after we do the Packers game. But you're talking about Kenneth Grant, so I will answer that in a little bit. Jordan, I'm going to just start up my matchup, and this is going into the preview of the Green Bay as well. The matchup I'm looking for is Tua versus Xavier McKinney. Xavier McKinney is having a career season. He already has 7 interceptions. That's 7 of Green Bay's 11 interceptions on the year. He's having a great year. He is doing a great job reading the quarterback. Tua uses anticipation better than any quarterback. So I'll be interested to see who wins that. It's going to be a chess match. So I'm interested to see who's going to win that. That's my biggest matchup offensively. The offense for Green Bay, Zach Tom is great as a great right tackle. I think a lot of people projected him to be a center going forward, coming out of the draft. So he's been a great right tackle. I think him versus Chop Robinson is going to be a matchup to watch. But as much as people talk about Jordan Love, as much as people talk about the weapons they have, from what I see, the offense does strongly still go around the run game. Josh Jacobs having another very good year. He's their highest rated offensive player, and Green Bay builds a lot of their attack off of the play action. So I think that's what you're going to see. I think this is going to be a game that our fans might get frustrated because it's going to be run down our throat quite a bit. But the defense has basically been bend but don't break. We have a top 10 defense scoring wise in total in the NFL, and one of the best red zone defenses. So I think this is one where you'll see a very bend but don't break defense on our end.
Yeah, I think when you talk about matchups, I think there are two matchups that I really look for in this game. I think the first one is going to be the play of our linebackers and our safeties on Tucker Kraft. I think that we have given up a little bit to the tight ends each of the last couple weeks. I think covering the tight ends has been a little bit of a weakness for us. And I think that Tucker Kraft is a breakout in a Thanksgiving game waiting to happen, when a lot of that attention is going to be on Jaden Reed, on Christian Watson, on Dobbs if he plays, on Dontavian Wicks, on Josh Jacobs. But I think Tucker Kraft is really the one that if there's a formula for the Packers to dominate this game, I think it's going to be through Josh Jacobs, but also through the play of Tucker Kraft. When the Dolphins have the ball, I look at the linebacker core of the Packers. Edgerrin Cooper out. Isaiah McDuffie questionable. So there's a possibility that you have some backup linebackers there, which is going to allow the Dolphins to control the short passing game over the middle and also running the football. And I think controlling the tempo, a lot like we saw in the Raiders game, I think is going to be very important in a game like Thursday night.
Yep. I will be interested to see as well. Jordan Love is having an interesting year. He has 18 touchdowns despite missing a couple games.
There's a lot of interceptions.
He does. He has 11. I was going to say that he has 11 interceptions, which is tied for second in the NFL with Patrick Mahomes. Number one is, of course, Geno Smith. So Jordan Love is.
I love how you say, of course, is Geno Smith.
Yeah. But I do think Jordan Love is someone who will give us our defense plenty of chances to get those interception numbers up. He's going to take risks. You might see us give up some big plays that have become less frequent, but have still been frequent at times for the defense this season. But I think there's going to be a lot of chances for us to make the big play as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think the people that stay up to watch this game on Thursday night are probably going to see the best overall game, and what I think is going to be two teams that really need a win to help their chances to make the playoffs, battling it out in a historic field in what will hopefully be a game that looks like good football weather. I hope it doesn't get too snowy, as I think sometimes that takes away from the football. And I think it's just going to be the perfect way to cap off Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Brett, what's your favorite Thanksgiving food?
It's kind of cliche to say turkey, so I'm not going to say turkey.
Turkey is overrated.
It can be
overrated as a holiday meat.
It has to be cooked well, but I will say I am going to my mom's for Thanksgiving. They make the best mashed potatoes. They don't do it healthy, so they just cook them with butter, and they taste extra rich. I love my mom's mashed potatoes. And when I go to my grandparents too, they make these homemade noodles that you don't think of as a Thanksgiving dish, but homemade noodles are awesome.
Mr. S says turkey's the best meat. I want to be clear about something. And this is one of the weird things about me. Ready? And follow me here. I like lunch turkey, but not dinner turkey. I don't like lunch ham, but I love dinner ham.
That's fair.
That's me. So I agree. I think that there are two things. Number one, as Zach said, stuffing. I think it's an underly utilized side dish that you only really get at Thanksgiving. So if there's good stuff in there, I'm going to take that. And then I'm a veggie boy. So I like green bean casserole if it's made well. Give me the onion flakes on top and all that. I like a good green bean casserole. But I think that the correct answer as far as Thanksgiving is concerned, the correct answer is stuffing.
I'm going to change it and not say green bean casserole. I'll say spinach casserole. It's pretty good.
What are your thoughts on sweet potatoes?
I do like if they're cooked correctly. I do like sweet potatoes.
The two things I can't really get into. I can't get into sweet potatoes, and this isn't a Thanksgiving thing, but I can't really get into avocados.
Yeah, that's overrated. Before we get into some other stuff as well, because I know there's a couple of things you want to hit.
Some other stuff.
Sign off. As Zach says, certified insane.
I think he was talking about me liking green bean casserole.
Yeah. What is the lunch? Also,
are you 70 years old? It's supper?
He lives in North Dakota, so that's
it's
why.
Supper? Are you the Three Bears that I'm Goldilocks? Like, wait, who is it? Is it Goldilocks?
Yes, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. He means like deli. He means
deli ham versus like a ham.
Yeah, I know what you meant. Mr. S wants to let you know Jordan 2 MVP plus 4,000.
40,000. That looks like
40,000. I think, and Craig Carton, who is a huge Jets homer who hates the Dolphins, said on TV today. He said if you do, and this is something I actually wanted to bring up. He did say if you look up the actual definition of MVP, Tua should be the MVP because we saw what the Dolphins are without him. And I would say this: I would put Tua in my top 5 MVP, but I'd probably have him at 5. I would have Lamar before him. I would have Jared Goff. I would have Saquon, and I would say right now Josh Allen, unless the Bills lose another game or two, I would say Josh Allen's probably the MVP right now.
So you remember I said if the Bills are going to win the division this year, then Josh Allen is going to be an MVP candidate. And I think that that's holding true right now. I think he is – I think Saquon and Derrick Henry are probably that next tier. But I think that right now it's got to be Josh Allen. And I think that if the Dolphins make a real run, it would almost have to be the Dolphins get like the 5 seed and like win out the rest of the year, and Josh Allen really hits a slump the rest of the season.
Yeah. Like I said, I think Tua is top 5.
Yeah, I agree.
Before we
lunch is dinner? What does lunch is dinner mean?
That must be a Midwest thing.
Is that like Finkel is Einhorn?
Basically. Johnny, Kenneth Grant is 340 pounds, 6'4", super athletic. He went viral last year because he ran down a running back in the Penn State game. He is also a first-round pick. I'll say this, since my dream of Mason Graham being a Dolphin is probably ending with us winning games, I would take Kenneth Grant in the mid to late first round as a D tackle.
Look, Bray, I'm a fan of those big 330-plus defense tackles / nose tackles. I would love Kenneth Grant on this football team. I think that right now you're looking at, like we talked about last week, interior defensive line, possibly a receiver. We're going to possibly be in that safety category. So I think that that's going to be an area that we attack. So I think Kenneth Grant's going to be right there in that range.
Yeah. Now, I would not touch unless you get a chance at Luther Burden or somehow Emeka Egbuka or Travis Hunter, which ain't happening. I don't really like this wide receiver class.
I don't love it. It doesn't have, I don't think, the top tier talent. But I think there are some guys.
Yeah. Now, if you want to sell me,
we're still in the cusp of playoff run. I don't really want to get deep into draft talk tonight. But just looking at simply position-wise, I would be shocked if we don't add some sort of physical player.
Like I said, I would be surprised if it's not a D tackle in round 1. There's just too many good ones.
But I feel like this is something commonly that we say that we end up pretty surprised with
I
what the
also wouldn't be
Dolphins do in April.
surprised if we took another edge. I would, but I wouldn't.
I would.
Yep. I just realized we didn't pick the game. Are you rolling with the luck and having us lose?
So I picked the Raiders. I had us lose. We won. I picked the Patriots. But I would like to say, I would, and I want you can go back and roll the tape. I picked the Patriots to win, but also said Dolphins 31-13 in the episode.
You did. I think I said 34-13, 14.
I think you said like 34-10, 34-20, something like that. I don't know.
Something like that.
34, I don't know. Whatever. We're both very, very close and spot on. However, I'm going to pick the Packers to win. I think it's going to be,
question.
The interesting thing is, and the Packers signed McManus. They were having kicking issues. I think that solved it a little bit. I think it'll come down to a McManus field goal. It'll be a matter of if he makes it or not. And I'm going to say, for the sake of this, that he makes it, but he doesn't. He won't. Go Dolphins.
Yeah.
For the sake of the Dolphins, I'm picking the Packers.
Yeah, I'm picking the Dolphins. I do think it comes down to a late field goal. I'm expecting. Last thing we saw, I'll say this. Last weather report said it's not going to be snowy, which is good.
If it snows, the Packers win. If it doesn't snow, the Dolphins win.
True. But I do think this is going to be a game where you will see us continue to rely on Achane and Jonnu in the passing game.
Good.
I don't think, like, as good as the Packers defense has been at times, I think they're like middle of the pack in the stats, but they've done better at turnovers. Yeah, middle of the pack. I don't think they have the athletes to cover both Achane and Jonnu, at least not the linebackers, even though they do have some really good linebackers. I just think they're bigger. They're built more for a 3-4. So I do think we can have some success there. I think we're going to win 31-28 on a last-second Jason Sanders field goal.
I love it. I love it. You know what? And you know what I love? That a couple weeks ago, and I think throughout the year, we were like, all right, we were looking at this stretch like we might be able to pick up some momentum here. But I think that there was definitely a time in the season where we were dreading this game being Thanksgiving night. And I like that there's some excitement behind it. And we really have a chance to redefine our season with a win here.
Yep. Mr. S comes up with this as well. Got to get Jonnu to the Pro Bowl. How many players right now and who do you think are Pro Bowlers for the Dolphins? I'm taking Tua out of it because I think he would be a Pro Bowler, but I think missing 4 games is going to hurt him in that. Plus, I think the AFC has some players having ridiculous seasons, so I think that hurts him too. Although I do think Tua is playing at a Pro Bowl level, but I'm taking him out because of the missed time, and he's got to compete with Lamar, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. So I just think he's got too many, even though I think he is up there. But who else do you think is having a Pro Bowl year?
Mr. S is naming him. Calais is one for sure. I think Jalen Ramsey's 100% going to get in the Pro Bowl. I think offensive line a lot of times is based off of name. So I think Teron Armstead probably gets in again. Aaron Brewer probably deserves to get in. Zach Sealer probably deserves to get in. But I'm not sure how national of names those are right now. I wonder if a guy like Tyreek and Waddle will get in just because of names. But receivers are so deep that it's difficult.
Yeah, Armstead will get on. Armstead's basically a lock because of his name.
Yeah. So those are really the guys that I see.
I would also say he's not going to get in, but he deserves it. Jordan Brooks.
I agree.
And speaking of Jordan, you said you wanted to talk about something specific.
Oh, yeah.
So you ask.
And look, at this point, you can get caught up in the momentum of the season. So what for you, Brett, and you can tell us, and I'll go too, I'm interested to hear your answer. What for you would make a successful Miami Dolphins season from this point to the end of the year?
Honestly, it hasn't changed. A playoff win. I think if we make the playoffs after the hole we dug, I will say playoffs is good. It shows that we have a good coaching staff. It shows that our team has character because we dug a hole that not many teams historically have gotten out of. So I will say in that sense, it was good. Here's Zach's choices for Pro Bowl: Campbell, Sealer, Teasted, and Ramsey and Hill. So if you look in terms of how the season went, Tua being out, digging the hole, having to dig out, and basically losing all room for error, getting to playoffs would be a huge accomplishment. But to me, still, you have to say win a playoff game because we're that talented. And I still think this. I think the approach to the season, we've talked about this so many times. I think how we entered the season, the team did not look prepared, going too much horizontal crap, which I think hurt us. How we handled the backup quarterback situation. Again, Skyler, if you want to cut Mike White because Skyler outperformed him, fine. But signing Tim Boyle to the practice squad was just arrogance and negligence at the same time. So I will say blame for that. We came in so unprepared for if Tua were to get hurt. And granted, you can say that about a lot of teams. There are not a lot of good backups in the NFL. Like, you can say that. But, you should have been prepared with a better practice squad player than Timmy Boyle. Because then you had to panic and get Ty Huntley in, and he was nowhere near ready to play in our system. So just looking at having to dig out the hole, playoff would be great. But to me, it's still you have to win a playoff game. Now, I will say this again, because we are even in the situation to make a run, is a credit to the team, is a credit to the coaching staff. So I will say this. I am proud of the fight the team has shown to turn it around. But I am still pissed off we are in this situation because I put it on arrogance and thinking you could just sleepwalk through the regular season to get to the playoffs. So that's where I stand.
I totally agree. I think that a successful season would be making the playoffs. I think when you're looking at the fact that your competition is a Broncos team that you beat 70-20 last season, I think it would be a disappointing season to finish the year with that Broncos team being ahead of you in the process. I think that would be a huge disappointment. Look, if we go to Buffalo or go to Kansas City and lose to those teams on the road in a playoff game, that we have to be competitive.
Yes.
But if we lose a competitive game, you know what? I don't think it's the end of the world. But you got to be competitive. I think you have to be competitive in that game. Even if Kansas City somehow loses the 1 seed and it's Buffalo, and you have to go back to Kansas City, I don't even think weather can be an excuse this year.
No, and I do think the team is more physical than it was last year. And
I agree.
We're as of right now, knock on wood, we are healthier right now than we were at this time last year.
For sure.
So there are things to be optimistic about. I honestly think if we miss the playoffs, it is literally going to be because we dug ourselves too big of a hole without Tua.
Yes. And in that case, that's on the organization.
Yes.
That's on Greer. So the fact that Greer was going to trade Calais Campbell and McDaniel went out on a limb and said that he put his foot down tells me that McDaniel doesn't put his foot down very often. So I think I would like to see if we don't win a playoff game, organizational change.
Yeah. And Mr. S, what you said is right. There's been massive improvements. There's stuff to be proud of. Even if we don't make the playoffs, I will say Mike McDaniel has improved as a head coach. There's a lot of organizations would end up like the Giants are now, like the Raiders are now, like the Bears are now, where things just fall apart and nothing goes right. The fact that we've turned it around and we're talking about it, that they're talking about us as a good team, as people are praising Tua, it took Tua not playing for the national media to actually realize Tua is good.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
So a lot has changed.
100%.
I think the team has improved their image nationally with how they fought through this tough time. And that is something to be proud of. But the talent is still too good to be in the situation where we're fighting back up. And this is not like I've said this before. Tua should be what takes us from a mediocre / good team to a great team. He should not there is no way that we should be as bad as we are without Tua. We went from scoring 10 points a game without him to 30 with him.
For sure.
Tua is that good, but there's no way that any quarterback should be 10 points bad in this system with these players. So that is where I say, yes, that is on the organization. Mike McDaniel does deserve blame because he has even said he asked for Tim Boyle. That to me is arrogance and negligence. Would I fire Chris Grier? I don't know, because I think a lot of the moves he's made have also worked this year. Now, some have not. Some of the moves that people he's let go have been the biggest issue, but players he picked up are doing well for us, minus Jordan Poyer. So
I think the question for Chris Grier is going to be, do you win? Do you make the playoffs? If you make the playoffs, you keep your job. If you don't make the playoffs, you don't keep your job. Unfortunate that that's how it goes, but I do think that that's the dependent.
Yeah. I do think, and it's weird, I've kind of been on his train, I do think he deserves somewhat of an apology for people dunking on him for we're not as worried about offensive line as you are, because not that the offensive line is good and we do need more talent, but the offensive line is not why we are in the position we're in right
now. I don't disagree, but I also think that it was kind of silly to shoot it down like that. I think you should still send the message that those guys need to improve.
Yeah. I do agree with that, but I just say I think there's somewhat, because we're not a 5-6 uphill battle because the offensive line is bad. We are in an uphill battle because our tight ends are bad, because our safeties are bad, because one of our captains was so bad we cut him mid-season, and because we did not have a rosterable quarterback outside of Tua Tagovailoa.
Fair.
So
but part of that is on
part of that is Grier. Yes. Part of that is on him. He is very much a give the coach what I want, what they want type of GM. And at some point you got to put your foot down and say, we need a player. No one is getting fired. Playoffs are not, probably not, Zach. Danny Crossman probably should be fired.
Oh my God.
But
you know what, Brett? And we're almost at an hour here. I think that right now at 5-6, we've won 2 games in a row. I think you and I need to have three games in a row.
Rams.
2 games in a row. No?
Rams.
Oh, Rams. 3 games in a row. Well, to win 3 games in a row, you've also won 2 games in a row.
Yes, true.
So the statement is true. But I think that we need to have some hopium. I think we need to be confident. I think we need to be positive towards this Miami Dolphins team, and just have faith that we're going to go into Lambeau Field and beat the Packers.
Like I said, most of Dolphins fandom hated Chop Robinson's gut 4 weeks ago, and since then he's been statistically, in terms of pressures, the second best edge rusher in the NFL.
Brett, we did this last week. We're going to finish the episode on doing it this week. Who is your Super Bowl come February? I think last week you picked, what was it, the Chiefs and the Eagles?
Yes.
And that was your pick before the season as well?
I believe so. No, it was Ravens-Eagles.
Okay, so you were Chiefs-Eagles last week, though?
Yep.
Are you staying Chiefs-Eagles?
Yes, I think as bad as the Chiefs have looked at times this year, they know how to win, and they've proven time and time again they can take it to a different level in the playoffs. I have said this many times too. Steve Spagnuolo is the best big game coordinator in NFL history.
Oh, for sure.
So get him in the playoffs, he is going to take it to another level. Damn right I am going to do Chop celebration on stream if we win Thursday. Yes, I will. Um, and Eagles, look, it's at this point, the Eagles and Detroit, the Lions are by far the two best teams in the NFL. But
I think so too. That's going to be a great game.
That's going to be a great game. It just comes down to a question. And I love Dan Campbell. I know you love Dan Campbell. He still does some weird shit at times in games. But so does Nick Sirianni. So it's going to be as good as those two teams are. That's going to be which coach doesn't make a mistake. But Saquon Barkley, I don't know if people realize how good he's been this year. He is on pace to go for over 2,000 yards. He might win the MVP, but he is just on a different level. Letting him and Xavier McKinley go are going to get Joe, what's his name? Joe Schoen, the GM for the Giants, him and Daboll fired. But yeah, the Eagles are just on a different level right now. Their defense, Vic Fangio is doing what he couldn't do with us, and it has an elite defense consistently. So I'm sticking with the Chiefs and the Eagles right now.
Yeah, I had before the season the Ravens and the Lions, and I think I'm going to stick with them now. I think that the 5 teams really, 3 in the AFC being Buffalo, Kansas City, and Baltimore, and then the 2 in the NFC being the Lions and the Eagles. I think those teams have the most talent when you look at the NFL teams. And I think that you wouldn't be wrong picking any of those 5. But I'm going to stick right now with the Ravens and Lions. I have the Ravens still beating them in that game with Derrick Henry winning Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah. The biggest thing with the Ravens now is they have the worst pass defense in the NFL. So that kind of scares me and shocks me a bit with the Ravens. But they can turn it around at any point. But yeah, I think right now it's just – I think until proven otherwise, it's got to be the Chiefs and the Eagles.
Yeah.
So I have Stone Cold Fan Campbell coaching circles around that pussy in Philly. He very well might, Zach. But it is time for us to call it a day. Jordan, hope you have a great Thanksgiving, and we will catch up at some point after the holiday. And I hope everybody else stays safe. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy.
Happy holidays, everybody. Happy birthday, Brett.
Thanks, buddy.